New year, new you, new launch. It's that time again. Actually, Q1 is the heaviest quarter when it comes to promotions, campaigns, and launching. And so I knew I needed to have a launch expert come on and talk about what she sees, what she's predicting for 2025, what we're inheriting from 2024, what's rolling over, what's not. Super excited to have Brenda McGowan, who is a launch strategist and expert, be on the podcast today. We talked about all things launching, what our buyers are really needing when it comes to that pre-launch, open cart courtship that I think so many of us take for granted, especially in comparison to like the movie industry and some other, marketing sectors, that like they understand that this is a slow burn getting people to want to anticipate what you have to offer. And so this podcast is like perfectly timed with some really great golden nuggets you're really going to enjoy. So without further ado, please welcome my guest, Brenna. Brenna, welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. Okay, we're kind of marketing sisters because your whole thing is anticipation marketing. My whole thing is identity marketing. And the two of us, correct me if I'm wrong, are making the same persuasive argument that when you do better marketing, you don't have to pitch slap your way to the purchase.
100%.
And you specialize specifically with the breed that is these online launches, which I think is the style of launching that is probably the most in violation of scaring people to buy. It's egregious, right? Like the tactics, the hacks, the techniques to get people to buy before the deadline is up. And like, it's gotten us online marketers a really kind of shitty reputation the last couple of years. And it's lazy because if you had done your marketing properly, which you and I are going to have a whole conversation around this, like they're going to want to buy, not because you scared them into buying. Am I correct?
Yes, absolutely.
So define for the people what anticipation marketing is to you.
Well, anticipation, the definition is excitement, waiting eagerly for something to happen.
Yeah.
And so that really wraps it up is how can we reverse, what we've done on the online business for so long, in which is people feel all of this pressure. I deal a lot with people who have launch periods, like 7-day open carts. And, traditionally the way that's looked like is someone does a webinar or some type of launch event. And then we pitch someone and then we ask them to make a decision in, 24 to 7 to 10 days to spend thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And then we wonder why this doesn't work. And then we feel like we failed at a launch because people didn't buy. And I'm always like I always say, make it make sense. Like, I don't know how this ever worked. When I came into online business, I started this business when I was 40 with no resources. And, even spending $500 online seemed like taboo. I remember asking my husband, I want to do this online course and I'm going to send $500 to someone that I found on the internet. And he's just like, what are we even doing with our lives? Right. And so I feel like we've created this system that doesn't work. And so I am a copywriter and was writing a lot of copy for people. And I just started to see there's this big hole in the market of people really thinking about what they're saying and doing with their marketing before they put the offer in front of someone. And that's really where this idea of anticipation came from, which is with anticipation marketing, how can we get people excited? How can we prime our audience? How can we position and really position the way we're putting our offer in front of someone? How can we create desire before we ever talk about our offer?
Okay, so the industry that comes to the top of my head, the space that I probably drool over as a marketer the most, sports marketing's up there. But other than sports marketing, it's movies.
Yes.
When I think about the anticipation for Bridgerton, I was like, oh my gosh, right? Like they're so good. I mean, like they're already told us who the actress that they've casted for the season that won't come out until 2026, something like that. It's just wild, right? And so I think about the anticipation that they draw up around Bridgerton, the new Wicked movie. I mean, even Marvel, some of these movies are we are talking 2 years out, and yet the anticipation has started today. Now, I don't know if you count that as a launch but it is a launch because for the movie industry and certainly for the studios, that opening weekend number is a really, really big deal. They don't technically close I mean, it leaves the theater and eventually will hit streaming services. So there is a clock, but not the way that you and I describe these online launches where like, this Facebook challenge and then their webinar and then there's the live event and you only have a certain period of time to make a decision on a product that you could buy at any other time. But like when I think about the movie industry, man, like they're the masters of permeating some really great marketing messaging in that kind of curiosity and then anticipation, like your desire for this thing that just boils over until you're like rushing to the movies.
Yeah, I use the movie industry all the time as an example.
So
And it's
good.
and it really lays it out in a clear way, which is like you talked about, like some movies are big enough that they're leaking out 2
Yes.
years, but the traditional movie setup is
True.
120 days before a movie comes out.
Damn.
So they are starting to think about that offer on the other side that far ahead of time. And so what they're doing too is that they know their audience. So you think about you're sitting in a movie theater and you start seeing the trailers for the next one. They're not showing you, if you're with your kids, a Marvel movie, they're not showing you like scenes from like a rated R movie or trailers from a rated R movie. They know their customer and they know what to put in front of you. Then they know what to tease you with, right? They know you so well that, and this is something I talk a lot about, anticipation. Part of anticipation is building these open loops. So if you're watching a trailer, they are showing you little pieces enough to create a narrative. They're using storytelling. And then not only are they using storytelling, but they're creating these open loops in your mind where you're like, well, what happened? I want to know while I'm sitting in that movie theater, that thing. So I've already decided that I'm going to go see that movie months ahead of time. They even though they don't have cash in hand, in my mind, I'm already anticipating it. I'm excited. They don't have to talk me into it. I am going, and in my mind, they've got this little corner of my mind where they're going to get some of my cash. And that is what I think we should be trying to accomplish in our marketing with our products, our services, whatever that is how can we start really getting people excited and getting them to make a decision before they can even give us money.
This is really interesting because the psychology of the open loop, it's one of the most powerful things that you can do. Somebody is leave them in suspense without closure.
Absolutely.
I mean, obviously Netflix is like the master of this, which is why you will binge all weekend to finish because every episode 24, you have to know who the terrorists are, but it's interesting. There's this really fun viral thing that took off years ago. I don't know if you ever saw it. It was like, how many rubber bands does it take to implode a watermelon?
No,
Did you ever see that? Oh my gosh. So one of my favorite speakers, Andrew Davis, he had this whole bit on stage around the curiosity loop. And he had this the story of basically these two people proceeded to put rubber bands around this watermelon. And like, the question was, how many rubber bands does it take to like literally like break it in half from the pressure in the middle? The comments, what people thought would be 30-minute commit because they're going fast, was like a 4 or 5 hour like over, just that ran over. And like people in the comments were like, I was supposed to pick up my kid from school 30 minutes ago. Like they like abandoned their life responsibilities because they desperately needed closure. They needed to know how long it would take or how many rubber bands or like just the satisfaction of seeing it explode in somebody's face. Like it was just wild. And I think, again, the study of psychology, people desperately, we need closure.
Yes.
And so, yes, open loops. Is there a question? Just because like same thing with marketing, like sometimes we we want to dangle the aspirational carrot, but then we also like, so to some degree you tap into like sticking, like kind of hitting somebody from behind to make a decision. Is there a line where you can over open loop to the point where you're annoying somebody, or is there no such thing?
I think so. I think there's a delicate balance.
Okay.
I think it depends what it is, but we all we're built, like you said, for these open loops. Like I had a friend the other day who was like, oh, I wanted to tell you something. And I'm like, well, what did you want to tell
What?
me? Yeah. And she's like, I can't remember. I'm like, don't do this to me.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Or even with my kids, I noticed this,
Yeah.
like where in the reverse, where I'll be like, hey, I need to talk to you. And my kids are like, what do you need to talk to me about? Like, am I in trouble? Right. There's like that open loop has been created.
Story is being told. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think there is a delicate, I don't think there's like a right or wrong or exact timeline. I think it's knowing your person and knowing like, okay, at some point we get to the point, I think. I think of one particular situation in marketing where someone was using open loops and I was like, okay, I'm tapped out. Like at first I was in and then it just got dragged on too long and then I started to lose interest. So I do think there are creative ways, but I also think too, is that we can do open loops and give people maybe little aha moments, little pieces,
Little payoffs
that kind of, move them along this buyer's journey. But like you said, when it's called the informational gap theory, where where our brains are wired to close loops. And so when we can open loops for people, it actually there's studies that show it keeps people more engaged, that people will remember you more because of the fact that these open loops have happened and we want to close it. And because they can't close it, you'll remember something. And you think that's why like cliffhangers on TV work so well, because we're wired to know what is going to happen.
Yeah, this is why I got married, because I didn't kiss my husband for like 2 months after meeting.
Really?
which I had never done with anybody else, which was so long. But like, yeah, we just took our time, just I guess getting to know each other without adding that like, fire to it. And then, of course, he had to marry me because
I was talking to my daughter about this.
Ultimate.
In my signature talk, I actually talk about, I actually didn't kiss my husband until we got married. And
talking about payoff,
right, the payoff was, and that's exactly what I talk about in my signature talk, like the payoff was so good, right? And then if we can create that same type of payoff in our marketing where things are so good, people become brand loyal, people want to be involved with you. And so I love that we have a little bit of similar stories like
common. Yeah, we do have that. I mean, it was just a slow boil courtship, and it was everything. And now here we are 15 years later. So I guess it worked to some degree, amongst other things. Okay, something that you do that I love is kind of like talking about courtship, the courtship or the art of the pre-launch. Define that, and then let's dive into it, because 2024 was a ducking, reckoning of a year for so many online entrepreneurs. Oh my gosh. Like I can't even tell you how many boxes, DMs, chats, just of my friends, my colleagues, clients, whatever, just crying of like, it's not working. What worked before, we did exactly how we used to do it. It's not working. No one's buying. Like the pandemonium that was this year, coupled with like a really stifling political atmosphere and the fear and all the stuff. So I want to talk in like where you kind of your predictions for pre-launch moving forward, but define the pre-launch season.
Right. So I help mostly coaches, course creators, people with memberships like that. So this can be applied in different ways. And, sometimes if something is more expensive, how warm your audience is. So keep in mind, these are general guidelines. These aren't like mandates, but I like a nice 4 to 6 weeks before we actually do an offer where we are building anticipation. We are creating these open loops. We're using our content to do the heavy lifting of our sales cycle. And so that's how I see the pre-launch cycle is like, how can once again, how we can have the marketing do the heavy lifting of our launches, of our campaigns. And where I see this going, I see that people have thought in some respect, I'm working with a lot of different coaches, course creators, where they've kind of either haphazardly have a pre-launch. Like I think people kind of know pre-launch is important. I don't think they have really realized how important it is. And I've only seen this grow in importance. I think for 2025, this becomes a non-negotiable. If you want to be able to stand out, and I'm not a person who speaks. I see a lot of nuance in marketing and in life, but I can say with conviction that I feel like you are, as a marketer, putting out content anyway. So like, let's create a system that is very intentional towards
Mm-hmm.
our buying cycles. So when you can start to do this, thankfully with my students and clients, we've had a lot of great results this year in a time where, like you said, people's numbers are down. And, I think about one of my students who went through my program, the pre-launch plan program, back in the spring. This summer, she increased her launch, her overall numbers. It was 60 or 70%. I can't remember off the top of my head. Like, these are the kind of things that can happen. And, nothing is absolute in marketing as well, which is one of the things I love and hate about marketing.
Sure.
But what I'm seeing is that when people start doing this process that I show them, that they really, and start building up to a launch, that they are seeing better numbers, or at least maintaining what was there before.
Yeah. So it wasn't, no crying for you. Well, okay. Can I ask you, like, philosophy wise, because I've seen different philosophies when it comes to content pre-revenue generating event. And revenue generating event is defined, like you said, in a variety of ways, offline and online. I've seen people tie their pre-launch content to stages of awareness. So they assume everybody anybody who following them, anybody on their list, like, we're just going to assume that you are radically unaware of anything that I have to offer. And we're going to start there with some content. Then the next week they go into like agitating the problems. Now we're problem aware. And then we go into like solution. We're like, okay, now that I'm aware I have a headache, I could drink more water, I could take Tylenol, I could lay down. Like, now there's some options for me. And then we get to like the thing, like the product aware. So I've seen that. And then I've also seen pre-launch content that was more like the traditional marketing funnel, which is like awareness, consideration, evaluation. Like, I'm just curious if you follow a philosophy in that pre-launch content that's like a particular cadence.
Right. Yes, it's a great question. So I would say I definitely tap into the stages of awareness. I don't think you should be talking to people for most companies, right? That, once again, things can change, but if you start talking to someone who's unaware, it's going to be
unaware.
It's going to be a long way to get them to product aware and most aware, where they buy from you. So we're always tapping into, I like to talk to one version of a person. So I know there's talk about ideal client. I think and I do think really having someone in mind when we're creating content and creating our sales is easier. But I look at a person as multifaceted. Like, I always joke around, like, I don't know about you, but I have a day where I wake up and I think I'm on top of the world. Like, things are going so great. And by 5 p.m., I can be like, let's burn this whole business down because I don't know what I'm doing. Right. Like, but I'm still the same person. So, and I think this ties into like a lot of what you talk about with identity marketing, which is like the aspirations of someone, how they want to see themselves, like really tapping into those. So when I am helping my students or clients, we're going through the awareness journey, meaning, okay, is someone problem aware? Like, they know they have a problem, but they're not quite sure what that solution is. Is that where most of your market is? Or are you someone who's solution aware, and like someone who knows they have a problem, they're actively looking for a solution? I believe there's this sector of the market that Eugene Schwartz might not be too happy with me, because I've created, like, I call situation aware, which I think a lot of people are in this online marketing, which is, okay, I know I have a problem. I know that there's a solution out there, but I've been looking for the wrong solution. So for you, for someone who comes into you, would be like, oh, I know I have a marketing issue, but I am looking to do Instagram marketing. I don't even know. Like, maybe someone's looking
tactic base,
or they're thinking, and then they find you and they go, oh, this is someone who has a problem. They're looking for a solution, but they don't realize they're looking for the wrong solution for the needs or wants that they have. So that's kind of how I think of like situation aware. So I always think of like, who is this person? And then I take it from a copywriting standpoint, and I think about like a sales page, which is like, what is the problem someone's going through? What is the things that they believe about themselves or about our industry that aren't true? What are the things that stop them from taking action? What is the transformation they're looking for? Like, how can we start tying in some of these copywriting pieces that are traditionally left on for a sales page and start dripping them out creatively
Oh,
in our marketing. And I think there's a big advantage because what I see, and I actually been talking about this to my email list subscribers. So I see a lot of problems with sales emails a lot of time where they're trying to do all of the work that I consider the pre-launch work in launch emails.
In the sales email after our cart is opened.
Yeah. They wait to start doing that. And they start, the example I gave last week was like, what they're trying to do is sometimes we need education around the problem that we have. But if you wait till the sales time, the sales period, start educating people, like in my mind, what you want to do is you want to put an offer in front of someone who's already very aware that they have a problem and ready to solve that exact problem, not trying to educate them around the problem that they're having to get them to that point. So that's how I see pre-launch is I see it's a buildup of making sure we're talking to the right person in the right stage for what we offer, while also thinking through those concepts of, okay, what are they going through? What's stopping them from taking action? And what do they really want? And positioning that in our marketing.
That makes complete bloody sense. In my launches that I've done in the past or how I've advised people, that sales page is everything. Like it is the everything. Like if your messaging cannot be found here, get that out of here. But to your point, a really great sales page could be like, feels like it's like 18 pages printed out. It's so long and it's such great material and it's such great content that nobody will see or read fully. And you're right. If you sandbag it until after open cart, especially I think about where the mind is at. When we got trained to be Tony Robbins speakers and Dean Graziosi speakers, I remember Pat Quinn, we were in Milwaukee being trained by him. And he's like, when you're pitching from stage, like physical stage, you have to remember that as soon as the brain recognizes it's being sold to, you've crossed what he calls the red line. And that's where the brain is like immediately skeptical of anything that you have to say. Now you're in the guilty until proven innocent stage, where right before they know they're being pitched, you are basically innocent. Like everything that you're saying is mostly taken as truth if they like you and there's some likability, especially the speaker on stage. And so like if they're getting all of that brilliant sales page based messaging after they've crossed that red line threshold, they're not even receiving its brilliance because there's that, the lens has changed. And if we can front load a lot of that, it's so smart. So smart. I'm like, you're smart.
Thank you.
That's actually brilliant. Yes, that makes complete sense.
And if I could say one thing on the top of that, we kind of talked about this when you were on Behind the Launch with me, and it's worth repeating, which is, I think of the book Never Split the Difference with Chris Voss, who was a FBI negotiator, right? He's so good. But
he's so good.
But what he talks about is when we give someone the ability to say no, they often come back and say yes, right? And that is how I see a pre-launch. We're giving someone the ability to say no. They don't
in advance.
They're not getting that red line because there's none of that like pressure, urgency, scarcity. We're allowing them to make a really good buying decision and tapping into what they want, what they need. And my goal is to not get to that red line place in the sales process.
This is I don't know if you, on the podcast, we've interviewed a woman named Tamsin Webster. She helps like TED speakers, like develop their big, like TED talk, that big, idea. And her whole mission is to help people understand that the person that you're trying to persuade, that they are smart, capable, and good. And if you can remind that these humans are smart, capable, good, we have a relationship just to even begin the conversation. And so I think the way that you're describing your pre-launch relationship building is on the assumption that, yes, I am problem aware, even if I'm not completely solution ready or solution aware, but at least you're treating me as if I am smart, capable, and good.
100%.
And that's where we're starting the conversation. That's a very different feeling than being pitch slapped into oblivion, setting up buyer's remorse, and then basically diminishing your customer lifetime value because they will never buy from you again. So you're just churning and burning people that you catch in a vulnerable moment. Is that really the brand that you want to build in the first place? No, thank you. Okay, I have a selfish question for you. And I'm so just fully transparent. I'm walking into 2025 not doing these hard launches of prior years. or open enrollment seasons that I've done for like the Rainmaker residency, because I have this incredible book that's coming out. And I know, like, again, intuitively, I know that when I digest like a really yummy book, whether it's like Traction by Gino Wickman or How to Build a Story Brand from Donald Miller, like when I get my hands on these books that have these incredible tools and frameworks and like what they call the prescriptive nonfiction category, I'm like one of those type A, like I can implement myself. But there always comes a point where I want my teacher to be like, good job. Like I want the validation. I want somebody to look over my work and be like, yes, you did this correctly, versus doing it in isolation. So we wanted to create a like workshop type of experience that people could like come into this and do the framework with us. And I don't want those to be one and done. Like I would love if every month there was an intensive on the docket, right? But then my fear creeps in, that online marketing fear comes in. Well, if I always have something available, then where's the urgency and scarcity to buy today? Now I'm going to be inviting them to do a better way of marketer and see themselves as a better form of a marketer. So like I'm definitely doing my own like identity marketing, but still, when you have something that's always available, how do you navigate your clients in those scenarios? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, I love that question. And so the way I look at this is that in life, so right now you and I are recording this and it's close to the holidays and Christmas.
Yes.
And you think about all of the buildup for the last couple of months it's been happening, right? It's like this slow buildup, and then the event comes, and then things kind of taper off. And so that's how I approach things with marketing, like is taking people. I think when you're trying to always sell the same thing, and I'm using a monotone voice here, like always sell the same thing, talking about the same thing, it starts to fall flat. But in our marketing, when we can start creating this natural buildup and this natural and the way that I kind of go through, and the way that I did it almost by intuition, but it's been backed up so much now that I've gone with so many students and clients through this process. So we're creating almost this roller coaster where we slowly, you think about the roller coaster, you're kind of going up real slow, and then you get to the peak, and then things like let down. And that is how I would start approaching your marketing. So how can you're going to have these points where you're going to create sales, where you're going to sell, and then it's going to have this natural decline, and you kind of take your foot off the gas, and we think about that person where they're at now and where they're at, and then we kind of build back up to it. So that is how I would approach what you're really doing.
Interesting.
I also think too, I do think that being creative, like, we all have different things that would I think you could have a real opportunity also to be like, okay, what are these things, like the things that kind of help knock us off the fence? So maybe, there are little bonuses. Maybe there's something special. Maybe there's a different positioning around. So that's something else that I would be thinking about in the process of this as well.
Yeah. Or tying the messaging to the culture at hand, right? So like the sentiment of the marketer, like why would I want to do identity marketing in January? Well, I know. Or why would I want to do identity? What would be the best use case for implementing identity marketing in March if this is the seasonality that I'm in? So like definitely making it more applicable. But man, damn it, I think about the Eras tour. That sucker went on for like 2 solid years, a year and a half. And people came back. Like if you went to the first concert, you went to like another. I know people who went to like 4 or 5 of them. Now, what's in her advantage is that she's only going to be in Toronto for 3 nights, or she's only going to be here for a particular season, period of time, location wise. But I mean, shit, people were flying to Paris. They're spending like thousands of dollars to go overseas to go see her. And so it was amazing to watch this artist, which I think is one of the best marketers of all time, essentially launch the same product over and over and over again, whether it was in the container that was the concert, or in the streaming service, or going to the movie theater, or then getting it on vinyl and having the tour book at Target right now. Like how many ways have we bought the Eras tour?
Yes.
And she keeps launching it. It's a work of art.
Yeah, no, I always talk about Taylor Swift too, because, and I agree with you, because if you think about how she started off, is that I talk a lot about there's like covert and overt ways in our marketing, like things that are really in your face and things that you're kind of, she
Yes.
did a beautiful job of doing this both covert, like I'm kind of teasing, but not telling you about the tour from what I've read. I don't follow Taylor Swift as closely as some, but I've done a lot of reading about her way back when this first started. And
Yeah.
then she had that pre-sale that
Yeah.
like built up all the anticipation
Yeah.
of and got people flooding in. And that's when we first saw
Mm-hmm.
like things selling out. And
Mm-hmm.
then what she did really well on top of it is then people were anticipating the tour. Therefore, they were talking about the tour, which creates her own buzz, starts creating her own marketing because people are so excited. And then because the product is so good, the payoff is so good that we talked about, then she gets all of the social proof, the promo,
Yep.
and it just becomes this
Yep.
beautiful cyclical thing. And once again, Taylor is not like buy my tickets. Like you're like, when can I buy tickets? How do I get tickets? Like you're searching out. So exactly like anticipation. And when you talk about with identity marketing, like it all starts to tie in together.
Oh gosh, I'm such a marketer. I just love seeing great marketing in the wild, especially across different industries. Oftentimes at this point, having done it for so long, I'm more inspired by things in completely unrelated industry or market sectors than my own. Like, not that I don't love the online marketing space, but like I think I get more inspiration from the movie industry or watching the NFL do their sports marketing and social media, or Taylor Swift do it with music. Or, I mean, even yesterday I did a whole workshop for a bank. I was inspired by the banking industry, which is like the most regulated space possible. But just going outside the fringes for inspiration can make something not feel so rinse and repeat. And I think that's the other thing that makes me sad is not only were people crying in 2024, their launches weren't being as successful as certainly the like 2020 COVID years where everybody was stuck at home with government checks, but like the fun is gone. Like make launches fun again. Like I feel like launches have become so emotionally destructive to the star of the show. Like my clients are crying behind the scenes. They don't want to get on the next webinar. They can't even look in the mirror. They're having these like kind of meltdowns behind the scenes, but they're supposed to be on camera. I'm sure that you're seeing the emotional consequences as well when you're working with your clients. Yes.
Yes, yeah, and I have a whole like module in it about dealing with the emotions. And actually, for behind the launch this time, I'm having Linda Perry, who's a mindset, and I'm also
Oh,
like there's a lot of things that I'm doing because it is so emotionally taxing. And I think the first step to this is to think about that. And I know we've talked about this once before, is that a launch is just a campaign, and every
it is.
business in the entire world
Yes.
runs campaigns. And
Preach.
some campaigns go good, some don't do good. We learn from the things that don't work out so well. And that's why, and not resting everything on one campaign either. I think it's just thinking about your business. Like
Yeah.
I really love when you can use, different promotional periods as great
Yeah.
ways to bring attention to your brand and, bring in, influxes of cash and this and that. But to take that pressure off and just remember, this is just a promotion. Like Costco's doing a promotion right now. Target's
Mm-hmm.
doing a promotion right now. Nordstrom's doing it. Like they're just doing a promotion where they decide, okay, we're going to highlight these things in our business and we're going to sell this at a
Mm-hmm.
certain time. And I think if we can start looking at it like that,
Mm-hmm.
then hopefully the pressure starts to be relieved a bit.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because you're right. Like, let's talk about e-commerce. Retail is, I mean, talk about their promotional calendar. They're always launching. They're never not launching. They're going from one holiday to the next or a made-up holiday like Prime Day. Like literally, they're just jumping from excuse to reason to excuse to reason as to why you should buy the Shark vacuum right now or buy the Dyson here or buy the whatever. Like it's amazing how creative they have to be. And I mean, mind you, they do the discount. It's mostly price oriented promos where you can have a percentage off or a price point like $1 off. But it doesn't mean that we can't learn from retail, even if we're not in retail. It doesn't mean that we can't borrow from these e-commerce giants and geniuses to see all of the unbelievably creative ways of making something old feel new again. Because that's really I think what's missing is leveraging novelty. How do you make the thing that you've already done and you've done month over month still feel new and exciting? Just like the fact that Taylor Swift would do different outfits The fact that she redid the concert when she added the department, the torture department, whatever, the Poet Society, the fact that she would have different guests or different surprises. So again, same product, but there was always a sparkle of something new and exciting that nobody had seen before, even if they had already gone to 3 concerts before. And I think that is what is generous, but it's also not lazy. You cannot be lazy to do that. And I think some
Yes.
people that were like complaining about their launches being sucky, I'm like, you did nothing different and you expected the same or better results. Like, not to call you out, but what are you thinking here? Like, that's lazy ass dating. You're dating somebody, court them.
Right.
It's just, let me just go off. I'll stop it. What are you, because not only do you work closely with people launching, and then you're really smart where you like interview people and you go behind their big ass launches. What is it that you project or are excited about? Because we're recording this December 17th. So we're on the precipice of a brand new year after a shitty election cycle. So like, what happens next? What are your kind of conviction filled predictions?
Yeah. I do think like slowing or that the slowing of the buying has
Mm-hmm.
definitely happened. I think that we will probably see some of that. And I think in 2025, I know you and I have talked about like that people just don't trust like they used to.
Mm-hmm.
People have so many different options. There's a lot of things going on where, wallets are tighter, things are more expensive.
Sure.
So I think that probably continues. I think what ends up happening is that, I think this goes back to what you just said, is that the days of lazy marketing are over, right? We really have to, right? Like we have to get our messaging down. We have to talk to our people.
Yeah.
We have to figure out ways to be persuasive and different and stand out in people's mind. And I also think it's this beautiful opportunity to hopefully have some fun with this, right? Think of different angles or creative ways that you talked a little bit about like with e-com, a lot of times it's discounts, but I think about like brands like Louis Vuitton, right? Like I think how they have pre-sales, like they never put anything on sale, ever. And so like, look at brands like that as well. If you're someone like, I don't want to go into a discount, looking to other markets to see, okay, what are they doing to position their products well, to get people to identify, as you would say, with their brand? How can you build up and tease and get them excited? So I think what we've talked about here really encapsulates what becomes not the nice to have again, but kind of the must as we move on in 2025.
Another good industry that I will look to for inspiration when inspiration is needed is health, dieting, fitness, because I'm in awe of how they can convince the same person to try yet another diet, which is basically the same diet they just were on. Like, I really genuinely think that like Atkins and South Beach and paleo and now keto, like it's all restriction based dieting. Like, take out something, amp up something. So take out the carbs, amp the protein, or it's essentially the same shit. But the way that they package it is brilliant. Like, the marketing changes. Like, I was just on a call yesterday with somebody who is a type 1 diabetic. And he's like, you want to talk about making something old feel new again? Yeah. How do you look what they did with a medical device? Right? A medical device that people had on their arm to tell them what their blood sugar was because they were literally diabetic. And now you have levels and you have Signos and you have every other copycat that like, hey, wear this glucose monitoring device to be your healthiest self. This device has been around for decades helping people. And now it is now this new hot fitness gadget that can help you achieve your specific weight goals. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So that's really interesting. There's, again, if you feel like your launches sucked or you're feeling depleted of creativity and worried that that will then permeate into another year, and you're like, I don't know if I have it in me, get out of your lane. Just get out and go to different industries and just be like almost like a social anthropologist, but like a marketing anthropologist. Like, go immerse yourself in another tribe to see how they're being sold to, what works for them. I think that's the thing that has always helped me when I feel kind of like stuck.
Yeah. I think thinking of ways too with people that have worked with you or creating, when someone says like, thinking about the market that you're in, no matter what, and actually maybe this we'll talk about, is like, I think word of mouth marketing is always the best marketing, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
so really, how can you start? I always say that you have your front end marketing, which is a lot of what we've talked about today. And then you have your back end marketing, which is the undercurrent that also pulls your marketing along. Is how can you start thinking about ways to ask customers and clients to talk about you? How can you start shouting out others and really putting spotlight on others, which brings it back to you? How can you spotlight what things have happened for clients and customers? Because when you can start doing the front end marketing with this undercurrent of marketing thing, and they start working together, that's when the engine really starts going.
Magic. And that's true about launches. You can launch publicly where everybody and their dog can see what you're doing. And then you can also launch behind the scenes in the back end of just a certain segment of your audience that is qualified for something. So like, this is where, I mean, there's so many ways in which you can offer something great to help somebody be great.
Yes.
Okay. We do this cool thing on the podcast where we actually leave the last question for you to ask me whatever you want, because it's only fair since I've just asked you like a barrage of questions. So I'll let you ask the last question of the show.
Yeah, no, I actually have asked you this question before, but I think it's so good. I feel like everyone needs to hear it
I don't know
again.
what I said.
Yeah, and I feel like it was something that really helped me, which is especially because I help people a lot with launches, and there are the occasional pitfalls, AKA failures, launch failures that people talk about. And that sometimes it feels like when that's happened, it's hard to and different types of failures in business, that it feels hard to show up when these things have happened and still promote yourself, your brand. And I would love to know when these things happen, how do we come back to our marketing and feel really strong about what we're doing? And how do we talk about things and be realistic and authentic, even though I don't love that word, in spite of when we have these pitfalls and failures?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is probably most applicable, or at least maybe for you and me, this is why we're hearing about it more, is like the personal brand dilemma. Because to some degree, a lot of personal brands position themselves in a way that to buy from me is to become me. So then I really have to like open up the door of my personal life so that you desire what I have as well, whether it's my house, my family life, the car I drive, the success, or the way that I live my life because of the model that I've created for myself. And I did it with courses, so you should buy how to build a course with me, like, so I think that also makes it hard, is where like your acts, whether intentionally or accidentally, have built a business to create many versions of you. So when that's the case, then the pressure to be perfect is important, because no one's going to buy from a mess to become a mess. So like, you feel like you can't show up messy. First of all, that's a problem in and of itself if you can't differentiate yourself from your business. Right now, I don't have a business like that. Like you don't know where I live. You don't know how big my house is. You don't know what, like, I don't talk about those things. I barely even show my children on social media, to be honest. And I think some people are like, "You're married?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm married." I'm like, I've been married for 15 years. But so like for me, first things first is like, re-examine your marketing and your messaging to make sure that the emphasis is on your buyer becoming the best version of them, not becoming a mini version of you. It doesn't mean that we can't empathetically connect by saying like, I was you and I know what it feels like and here I am. Like, I'm not saying that we can't take away part of the origin story of why you're an entrepreneur and why you seek to serve. But if the dominance of your messaging is buy from me to be me, you're going to have some serious problems moving forward, because people are multi-hyphened in their identity. I am a woman, but I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a wife, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm Cuban. I'm like, there's so many things that I appendage to my identity that motivates me to do what I do. That was very evident, I think, in our last election cycle. Like, whoa, everybody, there was no more like what's it called? Like identity identity politics. Well, you couldn't assume just because somebody was this demographic, they were going to vote this way. That was very obvious this last election, right? But with the question that you're posing, I think the other thing, whether you have a business that's built off your personal brand or not, I think too few people budget for failure, or in this case, budget for learning. The stakes are, I don't know why every launch is like make or break.
Right.
Like, whoa, sister. Like if every date that I went on with my husband was a make or break, I wouldn't be married. Like, right. A launch is just, you're asking somebody to go further in the relationship with you. It's courtship to some degree. And so if they say no, that they don't want to go play volleyball with you on Saturday, it's probably not because they have an issue with you. They just don't like volleyball. Like, sometimes I think we take it way personal, and stakes are so high. And like, really, marketing is just science, in the sense of you're just playing scientist. You're just hypothesizing shit. You're playing with the beakers. You're testing out new levels of ingredients. Like, we're just constantly tinkering in the marketing lab. And if that experiment didn't go well, it doesn't mean that you quit as a scientist, because you've anticipated and you expected that there would be learning and there would be space for fails. I just don't see a lot of people have that psychological expectation that like this could not work. But that's okay, because I don't have just plan A and plan B. Like, I have a whole plan A, B, C, all the way to Z alphabet. Like, I'm ready to go. And so that's what I'm doing. Like, at least that's what I'm, when I'm journaling, as I walk into a brand new year with a basically, like, just between us, like a brand new business model. I'm basically going back in the lab, playing. And I just don't want to forget that it should be fun. And that if this one doesn't work out, it doesn't mean the next one won't, or the next one. My job is just not to quit.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I do think this goes back to when I talk about pre-launch, it's like a lot of what we do is a hypothesis, but it sets up, it gives you some space in your marketing that you're able to, it's like, it gives you the better chances that you're beating the odds when you start doing the process. And I love 100. What you talked about. So it's like, yes, we're going into a hypothesis, and my friend Marisa Corcoran always talks about every launch is a different energy. And it's so true. But when we're starting to prep ourselves and do some of the stuff we talked about ahead of time, it helps circumvent. Hopefully, instead of waiting till we get to the sales period to realize something's not going well, we're able to hopefully circumvent some things ahead of time to help the process along.
Couldn't agree with you more. And this is a podcast for marketers who love or obsess with all things marketing. And we've gotten some pretty nerdy stuff in here. So I'm like really excited for this to come out. So thank you, Brenna, for being on today's Rainmaker podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening today. If you've loved what you heard, make sure to rate the show, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps us get the Rainmaker podcast in front of more passionate marketers just like you. And if you're ready to transform your marketing from buy this to be this, pick up my new identity marketing book available on my website at veronicaromney.com. Until next time, my friends, keep making it rain.